Edward III, born on November 13, 1312, was one of the most significant and transformative monarchs in English history. His reign, from 1327 to 1377, spanned 50 years, making it one of the longest in medieval England. Known for his military successes, his establishment of the English monarchy as a powerful force in Europe, and his impact on English society, Edward III's life was marked by personal ambition, political intrigue, and the pursuit of greatness. Early life and ascension to the throne. Edward was born at Windsor Castle to King Edward II and Isabella of France. His father, Edward II, was a weak and unpopular king, whose reign was marred by political instability, the rise of powerful barons, and the influence of favourites like Piers Gaveston. As a child, Edward III was largely a pawn in the political manoeuvrings of his mother, Isabella, and her lover, Roger Mortimer, who would play a critical role in the early years of his reign. When Edward II was deposed and murdered in 1327, his 15-year-old son ascended to the throne as Edward III. However, because Edward was so young, his reign was initially dominated by the regency of Isabella and Mortimer. The two effectively ruled England until Edward came of age and began asserting his authority in 1330. In a bold move, Edward III staged a coup, arresting Mortimer and asserting full control over the throne. This act of defiance solidified his power and marked the beginning of his reign in earnest. Military campaigns and the 100 Years' War. Edward III's most significant contributions to English history were his military campaigns, particularly during the 100 Years' War, 1337–1453, a long-running conflict between England and France. Edward's claim to the French throne came through his mother, Isabella, who was the daughter of the French King Philip IV. The dispute over the succession to the French throne after the death of Charles IV in 1328 triggered the war. Edward, whose claim was through Isabella, was one of several contenders, but it was his military prowess that would ultimately define his claim. In 1337, Edward formally declared war on France, marking the beginning of the 100 Years' War. His first major victory came in 1346 at the Battle of Crécy, where his forces decisively defeated the French. This victory demonstrated the effectiveness of the longbow, a weapon that would become a symbol of English military superiority. The Battle of Crécy also set the stage for Edward's later triumphs. In 1347, Edward's forces captured Calais, a critical port on the French coast, which remained under English control for over 2 centuries. This victory was a significant strategic win, ensuring that England would have a foothold in continental Europe. Edward's military genius continued to shine through the 1350s. The Battle of Poitiers in 1356 was another major English victory, and it resulted in the capture of the French King John II. This forced the French into signing the Treaty of Bretigny in 1360, which granted Edward extensive territories in France, though not the French crown itself. These successes made Edward one of the most powerful monarchs in Europe during the mid-14th century. The Black Death and its impact. Edward's reign was not without its challenges, however. The Black Death, the devastating plague that struck Europe in 1347, caused widespread death and disruption throughout England. It is estimated that between 1/3 and 1/2 of England's population perished due to the disease. This demographic crisis had profound social and economic effects, and Edward had to manage the impact on his kingdom carefully. Despite the destruction wrought by the Black Death, Edward III continued his efforts to strengthen the English economy and centralize power. His ability to manage England's political and economic landscape during this difficult time is seen as a testament to his leadership. Domestic policies and legacy. Edward III's reign was also marked by significant domestic achievements. He was instrumental in the development of the English Parliament. His relationship with Parliament was complex but productive. He often called on Parliament to approve taxes for his military campaigns, but he also respected its authority and used it as a political tool to balance the power of the nobility. During the later years of his reign, Edward faced increasing political dissent. His inability to decisively end the 100 Years' War, combined with his declining health and advancing age, left room for the rise of factions within the court. His eldest son, the Black Prince, Edward of Woodstock, was often the focus of popular and military support, and by the late 1360s, Edward III's influence began to wane. Edward III's legacy is a mixed one. His military victories, particularly in the early phases of the 100 Years' War, cemented his place in English history. He expanded English territory and brought great renown to the monarchy. His reign also saw the rise of the English longbow as a dominant force in warfare. On the other hand, the latter part of his reign was less successful. The war with France dragged on without a clear conclusion, and England's resources were exhausted. Edward III died on June 21, 1377, at the age of 64. His death marked the end of a transformative era in English history. He was succeeded by his 10-year-old grandson, Richard II, because his eldest son, the Black Prince, had died in 1376. Conclusion. Edward III's reign is remembered for its military triumphs, the establishment of a powerful monarchy, and significant contributions to English society. He was a ruler who navigated the complexities of medieval politics, warfare, and domestic governance with remarkable skill. While his later years were marred by the prolonged war and internal challenges, Edward III's early reign remains one of the most successful in English history. His military strategies, the expansion of English territory in France, and his influence on English political institutions ensured his place as one of the most important kings of the medieval period.
Thank you for watching. Please subscribe our channel.